There's a little bit of Sixth Sense, maybe a little Shining there at the end. But one of the interesting dynamics here is Britta sort of confronting or being confronted by her past a little bit. And I think this sort of section here gets overlooked, but it's a great insight into Britta's character. And I really love the way that she's sort of grappling with, like, you know, the sort of peaked in her early 20s kind of situation that they're trying to characterize in this community college scenario. And she's just still living in the shadows of the sort of protests. Protest Britta has that her era, protest era, and the sort of identity and the self-concept that she got from that time period. And so what's difficult, I think, for her to reconcile is that continually she's not that person. And so who is she now? And so confronted by the past and these people, and there's really kind of three tiers that happen when you meet somebody from their past. There's the initial getting to know you, like, oh man, you were a legend, yeah, this guy here, and, you know, kind of capitulated by the toast that is given to Britta. Then the sort of pleasantries, the actually getting caught up, like, oh, we're in real estate now, oh, I'm in community college, I'm really not that great, you know. Britta kind of explains the toast with this sort of, like, she carries on the sort of humble but also still, like, grandiose self-concept, the sort of that's like sort of condescending, as if she has the answers, because she was like, the toast was kind of like, you know how overblown you get with toast, like, she matched the toast energy because she still is holding on to that. And so they really kind of are poking at her cracks of her personality and the fault lines of the self-concept that she has. And so when she's confronted with that, it's like she's having sort of a narcissistic collapse, effectively, because she's latching onto that identity. And I feel like she's trying to seek validation, and she's using this experience to bring every last drop of validation from all three tiers of the toast, and then the pleasantries, and then the sort of the reality of, like, where do we go from here? Like, you know, we're actually connecting now. We're not now. You know, we were catching up. Now we're caught up. Now, what's the substance of the relationship here? And for her to take that moment and sort of just, like, let's go be the thing that you're celebrating me for. You know, let's all, you know, I'm going to lead you down the path of rebellion. And she kind of takes their hesitancy and pokes at it. And this is where she can sort of dish it out but not take it. And she really, you know, it's just like impulsively tries to point out their flaws, and that they aren't that person anymore, kind of projecting. And does she get it, like, how dare she, right? Because, like, she gets it handed back to her so harshly. And the fact of when they're like, you know, they mock the gesture that she did after her toast, which was over the top, and they point out the fact of, like, how ridiculous that it would really be for them to jeopardize, you know, be in the paper for some sort of, like, act when they've worked to create so much wealth. And then they illustrate, like, you know, just having a good read on her, how much charity have you done these days? How much are you actually giving back? Like, you're this scholar, like, they're calling her, you know, she already, like, was revealed too much, and they're calling her out on it. Like, you just said that you're a struggling college student, so are you really giving back to the community the way that we are? But she could be still, like, protesting and still advocating for the less fortunate in ways that, you know, it's just that she did not act like she'd been there before. And her sort of, like, seeing herself in the moment and over celebrating, I think, was sort of picked up on by, it wasn't lost on them. And so while it was sort of like a mean girl moment for her to just, like, not hold back, it's really that threshold, and this is my ultimate question, of, like, with pleasantries and exchange, like, is it sort of self-abandoning to not say the harsh thing, to not point out Britta's hypocrisy when Britta's, like, dishing it out like that? I don't even know necessarily that these hipsters were, you know, turn yuppies or whatever, like, that in the wrong. I mean, you know, they didn't have to, like, mock her necessarily to that degree, but when she starts to poke at them and really just like use the situation to validate this identity that she's been clinging on to, and the way that she's romanticized and idealized the past and the legend in her own mind that she's created living in the past, it really has exposed a lot of her vanity. And in that moment, this crisis that is sort of is just like, we just blow right past for her, that is almost exploited by Professor Duncan, which is egregious, and like how he weeps for himself. And that's what the beautiful thing about the, you know, shades of like enlightened from Mike White of like and Laura Dern is that Chang's sort of thing of like being a ghost, and then like Britta's catharsis moment that she has to get through her own like not being seen, and then being seen incorrectly or inauthentically, or reconnecting to herself and finding a new identity that's not built on the past, hopefully, is what that sort of bubble bath represents for her. Is that, you know, you can start to feel like a ghost when you aren't properly reflected back by your peer group. And when your peer group, you know, builds you and affirms your idea of its in self-concept, of which we've seen them actually actively sort of pander to, you know, in the intro to felt puppetry. There's sort of, they allow Britta to think that kind of stuff. And so when Chang is not even sure if he is a ghost, if he's real, he needs to study to reflect back to him who he is and how to deal with this existential crisis. This is a beautiful metaphor, because her sense of self and her own ghosthood is reflected for sure in the confronting of her past, and the fact that she's exposed so thoroughly as having sort of improper sense of self and grandiosity based off of something that happened probably 5-10 years ago. So the condescension by which she comes back to them, it comes back to her. But I would like to think this was like a moment for her that is deeply reflective and causes integrator growth, which is really important for her, rather than like this shallow sort of like she got exposed for being the worst and she is the worst, and poor Duncan couldn't exploit the moment of her brokenness. It was the fact that he was lamenting being a good guy was a little bit much, and he also was being a bad guy to Jeff, who at least was being honest about his narcissistic view of the situation and of Britta, and the way they sort of attempted to be friends for her there. So I don't think it's a good idea to self-abandon, to hold back, but you don't necessarily have to be that critical and that unhelpful and that mocking either. There definitely could have been a middle ground between that, but it's kind of like if you dish it out the way that she did, you have to be prepared to take it. That gave them permission to sort of do that mean girl finish her RoboCop Abed style takedown. But that was all summed up by Jeff by like, wow, she's the worst in that friend group as well. But it's really way oversimplified, and she is on a journey to finding herself and into her own self-analysis and psychology. It's always funny, the people that want to help everybody else that need to do the most reflection is the trope, I think, and the most growth and the most work. And that's what she seems to have been avoiding by doubling down on her psychology pursuit. So the hope is that she inspires us all to find our own areas of inauthenticity and sort of vanity and validation seeking improperly, and we learn to live in the moment and in reality and truth, with hopefully a good friend group of those people who can tell you the harsh truth with constructive criticism that helps you be the best you.